So we're going to move to the third front, which is South Lebanon. We are now 28 days into the ground maneuver, as Israel calls it, in Lebanon. The IDF says that it has lost 70 soldiers. Hezbollah says they have killed 90 soldiers. So you're seeing roughly the same, give or take, casualty counts by both sides. We see that with 𝐓𝐡𝐞 as well. 𝐓𝐡𝐞 is never exaggerating the troops. We can see by their field reports that they match the numbers killed almost exactly. So they're telling the truth. Hezbollah, if anything, told too much truth during the pager and assassination era of mid-September to late September. But the Hezbollah organization media arm put out that they've destroyed 30 tanks, 4 D9 bulldozers, and in the last 4 days alone have carried out 103 rocket barrages. So that's not rockets, that's rocket barrages. And some of these rocket barrages are 50 to 85 rockets per barrage. They're maintaining about 200 a day rocket total, but the ground war on the border is only just creeping across the border at this point. They're maximum 3 kilometers across the border, and those 3 kilometers are forested, wooded, mountained areas. They're not going into villages. They haven't taken a single village yet. The IDF spokesperson said yesterday that they've hit 3,200 targets, airstrikes on 3,200 targets. In the past 7 days alone, Hezbollah has carried out 265 qualitative operations against Israel. And of course, this week, or just yesterday, Naim Qassem, who was Saeed Hassan Nasrallah's deputy, was named leader. And we will talk more about him in the discussion, but he's a logical choice. He was the deputy. He's a public face of Hezbollah. He's a historian of the movement. And in any case, the Shura Council makes collective leadership decisions. Things don't change based on one personality or another. And so the organization is able to withstand the loss of individual leaders because they run a collective leadership structure that we'll talk about more at the end in the discussion. So let's look at number 10 here. This is an Almas anti-tank, top attack anti-tank weapon strike. This is, again, I try to tell you this every time, but this weapon was captured in the July war in 2006 in battle. Hezbollah captured this unit and took it to Iran. Iran reverse engineered it and put it back into battle as an Almas. And this tank weapon we have been seeing is a devastating tool because it comes from above. It can be controlled. You can see the tank soldier riding outside of the top here, and they can put it through camera anywhere they want on the vehicle. This is on this day where this operation took place on Friday, there was 48 operations by Hezbollah, 48 distinct operations, which is the most they've carried out throughout the war. So the assassination of their leaders has not changed their operational tempo at all. Like I said before, 38 tanks destroyed, 4 D9 bulldozers. They've also dropped 5 Hermes drones, which we're going to watch in the upcoming videos. But this is the first of 2 Almas top attack anti-tank missile strikes. And as you can see, these strikes are going across the border. These are not strikes on advanced position Israeli armor. The Israelis aren't rolling across deep into Lebanon. They haven't touched the villages with tank and maneuver warfare. They have no forward positions. These are strikes behind the lines because they're not advancing. Hezbollah has kept them back. We can do number 11. Hezbollah has not. Hezbollah's defensive standoff fire has kept Israel outside of the villages right now. Fierce combat, but has kept them outside of the villages right now. The villages are being destroyed because Israel bombs them from the air and does everything that we know they do in Gaza. Artillery leads the way. They attack the civilians. This is a troop position. This is a troop position near Ait Shab, and you can see the bus is unloading the soldiers coming to battle here. The bus unloads the soldiers, and immediately upon getting off the bus, you can see they see it's incoming. Immediately after getting off the bus, Hezbollah targets them. So welcome to the northern front for Israeli soldiers. And these attacks, both of these last two attacks, had 10 fatalities in the two of them, and they are reservists. So Israel can't endure long, grinding war with reservists dying, which is partly what you're seeing in their statements. They're talking about, they're looking for an off ramp in their operations. They're trying to say that we have secured the border. That's that they have secured the border. We can go to the next one. This is showing what I'm describing here. Israel is not advancing beyond the border. What they're doing, that's a row of tanks that you can see moving down the hill. That's another column of tanks moving down the hill. What Israel's doing is essentially securing the border. That securing the border is not the test for Hezbollah. Hezbollah is not, by UN resolution, supposed to be right on the border. And so it's not indicative of the success of their fighting group whether they protect the actual borderline, which there isn't actually a borderline. There's a nebulous buffer zone. And that's part of the reason why Israel takes credit for these cross-border attacks, that the border is not like a big long fence along the whole border that's easy to identify. You're talking about mountained, treed areas. So we're still seeing standoff fire. We're not seeing tanks maneuvering inside Lebanon in large numbers. And when we do see that, we're going to see it on video, just like we saw those Almas videos. These are the burning vehicles. And Hezbollah points out that the tank column withdrew. They withdrew back across the border. The weapons that were used here were Phalag 2 rockets, M80 fragmentation rockets. Those were the ones I showed you last week. And standard mortars. That's the footage of the vehicles driving up the hill, going back into Lebanon. They're not totally sure they want to fight this battle. Well, you watch this one again, the troops coming down the hill before they have to go back up the hill to actually fight where the defensive positions that Hezbollah has set up in villages like 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜. But there was an operation that the IDF explained. I'll let them explain it from their side. They said 4 reserve soldiers were killed and 6 others were wounded during a clash with Hezbollah operatives in southern Lebanon yesterday. They all served in the 222nd Battalion. According to the initial IDF report, several Hezbollah operatives emerged from a tunnel inside a house the soldiers were in and hurled grenades at them. The soldiers tried to return fire, but it remains unclear if they hit anybody. The Hezbollah fighters returned back to the tunnel with 4 killed Israeli soldiers, 6 wounded, 3 in serious condition. And that operation, that's a shout out to 2006. That's what happened, and that's what ended the operation in 2006, the Israel's ground war. They came up and they thought they were holding a house, like they do in the West Bank, like they do in Gaza. Those 4 that were killed in Gaza today are trying to hold a house, and they were killed by fighters coming up from a tunnel in the basement. So, and number 13 here is Hezbollah downing. I'm bringing you all a range of operations. There's many more of these operations. I'm just trying to show you a range of operations here. This is an 𝐓𝐡𝐞 Hermes 450 drone. Hezbollah's air defense unit hit this with a man-portable air defense system. That's a shoulder-fired system, like an 𝐓𝐴 probably is the most likely one that was used for this. Again, it's an 𝐓𝐡𝐞 systems here, flaming and falling to the ground. This is one of 5 in the past 8 days that they have shot down, and there was 10 of those before the war. So they're able to get these drones. They're able to area denial these drones, these expensive drones. These are the flagship drones. The 450 is not the flagship. The 900 is the flagship. That's what they got today. But they're able to drop these drones. They're still not showing us the weapon that they're using at this point to do that. And previously, they hadn't even showed us the moment of impact because they're trying to hide what missile is being used. So interesting, dropping drones consistently. Number 14 here is also interesting. This is a warning that was sent out to Israelis in the nature of the way that Israelis do it. They're pointing to each of these settlements, Kiryat Shmona, Carmel, Nahariya, Shumera, Shaul, Maron, and on and on and on. And each of these, they're showing you these particular spot in each of these villages through their surveillance, they're showing you that these are military positions inside these settlements, which in 𝐄𝐥𝐿 𝐄𝐿 and Metula, I showed you previously on these shows, 60 minutes taking you into Metula and showing you how the military positions are set up within these evacuated villages, these settlements. And so they're showing you here all across the northern border and all up in the panhandle. It says, to all residents of the settlements mentioned in this statement, you are all requested to evacuate immediately. Your settlements have become a place of deployment and position of military forces attacking Lebanon. As a result, they have become legitimate military targets for the air and missile force of the Islamic resistance. So remarkable there. And we're firing, Hezbollah is firing, we're seeing them fire again 150 to 200 rockets a day, barrages that are 50 to 80 at a time. Iron Dome cannot handle 125 rockets at a time, especially not from multiple sites. So these are still, Hezbollah is still playing it careful. They're trying not to draw Israel into an open war. But they're definitely defeating Israel's advance. Israel is not advancing even by their own statements. Their own statements say that they're 1 or 2 kilometers across the border where possible. They moved up a little further in 𝐓𝐿𝐿, which is further up the border. So I'm looking at a map over here. Little further up the border, there's more space between the border and 𝐓𝐿𝐿, so they moved maybe 4 kilometers up in that region. But they're not. They're right along the border. They're not moving into South Lebanon. So let's look at number 15. This was another qualitative operation that we're seeing. I showed you these a while back. These underground missile bases. The Imad-4 is what I showed you. Here's a Qadr ballistic missile, precision-guided ballistic missile. You can see Fuad Shukr, who is the head of the missile force, and Abu Hadi martyr posters there. So firing from underground truck-launched missile bases on Tel Aviv with a 405 kilogram warhead and a 250 kilometer range. These are game-changing weapons that, were they to be deployed en masse, which they are not being right now, are game-changing. They're precision-guided. Hezbollah engineers indicate within 5 meters is their target range. There you can see Abu Hadi and Fuad Shukr in those pictures. So these are a qualitative upgrade of arsenal and to fire on targets in Tel Aviv. This was fired on Mossad and Unit 8200 at the Glilot military base that people are now coming familiar with. And on number 16, this is a rocket barrage. And it's interesting to see this because you can see why the rocket barrages are difficult to deal with in counterfire when they come out of the trees like this. That's how you see how you get missile barrages of 80 and 125. You launch three of those guys, and that's how you get it. And look, it just emerges from the trees. Defense Minister 𝐿𝐿 𝐄𝐿 said that Hezbollah maintains only some 20% rocket and missile capability that it had before the war. I estimate the remaining capacity of missiles and rockets to be on the order of 20%. It is also not organized in a way that it can be organized in a way that Hezbollah could fire large volleys. That's what he said this week, on a week that Hezbollah fired volleys of 125, 85, and 50 repeatedly day after day. So they're living in a world where Israel's living in a world where they're talking to their audience about limiting the war in Lebanon. They're not talking right now. None of their statements sound like they have the stomach for a protracted ground war against Hezbollah. And Hezbollah is playing it still pretty carefully because they haven't needed to attack the tank columns that come up. But those Almas, the dual Cornet anti-tank missile that are mounted on quads, on four-wheelers, those are tank killers. And Hezbollah has many, many of those. So when you see what you will see with a large-scale mechanized invasion and maneuver in Lebanon is you'll see tank killers hitting the tanks in large numbers. The 38 that they're talking about right now, yeah, we can go to the next one, is a series of drone operations. But just to say, there's been 12,500 sirens in Israel because of rocket fire. When we see large tank movements come across the border, we're going to see videos of many tanks being being killed because, or at least demobilized, but probably killed because these are tank killer weapons. They're much stronger, much more penetrative than the Yasin, and we know the Yasin destroys tanks. We know the Shawad destroys tanks. So these are drone launches. There was more than 200 drones launched in battle since the late September, since the beginning of what Israel calls the ground op. So these we're showing you here a handful of 200 drones that have been fired in battle. These all look like Shahad series drones. There you see the military vehicles behind the border. These are attacks inside Israel. So they're defending Lebanon, but they're attacking Israeli positions inside Israel. Israel does not have forward positions inside Lebanon yet. Still, 28 days into the war, they're unable to set up forward positions. Anytime they're moving across the border, they're moving delicately, and they're not setting up forward positions like I just described in Jabalia that killed the soldiers in Jabalia, where they tried to take over a house. That's not happening in the villages like 𝐓𝐡𝐞 that you would be looking for, or of course much bigger villages like 𝐓𝐡𝐞 that are ready for battle and are fortified. The border itself is not fortified, and that is because Hezbollah followed the rules of the UN, of the ceasefire of 2006, and they're not supposed to be permanently on the border. So the fact that Israel can roll a kilometer or two across the border is not an indication of the success or failure of the resistance. The indication is when they fight in the villages, which we haven't seen yet. And if we do see it, I think we're going to get a lot of videos showing what we're seeing here. The final one of these drone operations was, these are targeting military positions. You could see the military positions. These are military positions inside these settlements in the north. One of them, Sasa, so shout out, that's a ethnically cleansed Palestinian village of our friends. So shout out to Sasa, maybe. But here we're seeing BAZ. This is a Israeli aerospace making fighter jet metal. And Hezbollah puts a drone swarm. See, you're going to see multiple drones launched here. Put it through the roof of that military industrial site in just between Akka and Haifa, just on the downslope from Haifa. And they put it through the roof of that building. You can see multiple drones going up. The only way to shoot down these drones for Israel is to deploy fighter jets or attack helicopters and literally shoot them down. And usually the way they're seen is not on radar. It's seen by people in these forward bases that are literally yelling, "There's a drone," and pointing to it. And they fly low and slow, and they're very difficult to take out of the sky. So we will see more of these drone operations, and we have for the past month. So that is the resistance report from Jabalia, from the northern West Bank, and finally from South Lebanon. And there will be many more of these until Israel stands down from both the genocide in Gaza and the attempt to push into South Lebanon.